I've had a lot of people ask me about what happened to Charlie Kirk and theories over what's really going on. And there are a lot of questions. I don't think we know exactly what's happening, and I don't think it is wrong for people to be inquisitive. There are several videos, notably the one that I have displayed, where they're claiming this man has a palm gun. Now, palm guns are things, they exist, but I'm going to go ahead and say no. The first thing I want to say to everybody as it pertains to this story is, in the absence of evidence, the solution that makes the least amount of assumptions tends to be correct. That is Occam's razor. Now, when I look at all of these different theories over the alternative story as to what really happened to Charlie Kirk, none of it makes sense, and it is a cluster. But I will also add, the official story that we're being given, I'd argue, is also lacking in information, which you would expect. I'm not saying is evidence of anything. Absence of evidence is not evidence of something. But I would say that there's questions around what we are looking at in this official story. That is to say, a few points. The official transcript of the communication between the alleged shooter and his boyfriend seems by any reasonable mind to be scripted. Literally every political faction thinks so, even MAGA. Now, the liberals are putting out these memes where they claim that MAGA just wholly believes it outright. Well, I'll just point out, Matt Walsh said this right away. It looks like it was scripted, just like in Breaking Bad, as though the shooter wrote this to create some kind of, indemnification or exculpatory evidence for the boyfriend when this goes to trial. That is, the boyfriend, if ever charged as being an accomplice or something to that effect, can say, look at these messages. I didn't know. But those messages are really hard to believe. Kash Patel has made a statement saying we are looking at all of this to try and figure out what happened. And of course, I will stress, there is a lot of money to be made and a lot of views to be made in creating videos titled like The Truth about the Charlie Kirk assassination, with the insinuation, of course, being that he was murdered by someone else and it's being covered up. So the first thing I'll say is, look, I've gone through a lot of these conspiracy theories, and there's interesting questions about highly improbable outcomes, as well as who are these guys around him. But I think everybody's just reaching through grainy videos, and we don't really know for sure. What stands to reason, to make the most sense, is the guy who was on the roof running with a gun, probably the guy who did it. There is a possibility in reality that it wasn't, but you probably that he was the guy, right? And then he hid the gun, and there were engravings on it, and the motivation lines up. But as with this seemingly scripted conversation, and maybe it's not, there have been people who have said outright, like, guys, I got to be honest with you, these weird, like, ooh-woo furry types on Reddit really do talk like this. They are autistic. I'm not trying to drag autistic people. Some people are arguing that transcript actually is real because autistic, weird Reddit, antisocial people talk like they're in movies. They really do. Now, I do think still it was probably transposed, like not a single typo. Plus, there were ellipses in parts of the conversations because they said it outright. They weren't releasing everything. So there's a few stories to break down. One, we have the palm gun story. Let me play this video for you, and we'll talk about the palm gun.
This is Dabu7, and I want to share with you here one of the craziest clips I have seen yet connected to this whole Charlie Kirk shooting. This is from a different angle, and this shows a guy that is sitting right out here, front left of Charlie. And the second that Charlie shot, this guy does something super suspicious, and some are claiming he has something in his hand.
It's not suspicious at all. He reaches and he scratches his arm.
Speculate a hand pistol, a handheld palm pistol that is squeezed, and he is one of the closest people to Charlie with no one in between. Whatever he's doing, it is super suspect, and it's at the exact moment. I have to say, the timing of the movement of his hand, the gunshot, and everything else, it's all right there. And
so let me just pause and first point out, palm pistols are a real thing. They've been around for a very, very long time. And there's a bunch of online diagrams explaining how they work. Basically, you've got it fits in your palm. It could be any shape, square, circle, otherwise. It's got a barrel that sticks out between your finger, either your index and middle finger or middle finger and ring finger. And when you squeeze your palm, it pushes in and a bullet fires. And it's a revolver. So there are bullets pointing in every direction, and it rotates when you fire. I'm just going to go ahead and say, wow, if that guy was able, without actually looking, to aim that gun and make that shot. Honestly, I feel like the people who believe this one have never fired a gun before. I know that's probably not true, but there's no recoil. The guy is just scratching his arm. Now, the thing is, many people have asked me about a variety of these conspiracy theories. Forgive me for showing this image. I apologize, but I want to address this because people are trying to claim now that artifacting is evidence of a bullet. The streak circled here with the line showing I got to be honest. This is an image of the impact. They're arguing that this streak is an exit wound or something? Maybe. Now, again, forgive me for, I hate to show things like this, but I really want to address all this stuff. Charlie Kirk ally claims miracle stopped bullet killing anyone else. This is important. Andrew Colvett claims to have spoken to a surgeon that tried to save Mr. Kirk's life and posts on social media to discuss the apparent lack of an exit wound. If they're lying, they could have just said there was an exit wound. Thank you and have a nice day. They didn't need to come out and say there wasn't. No one saw a chart, silly. Let me just say it again. After Charlie got shot, the cameras go down and they bring him to the hospital. They could literally say whatever they want. They could claim that Charlie reached up with his hand in his last dying breath and said, I'm giving you $1 million or something. Like they could make up whatever they want. The reality is it's likely not made up because if they're making things up, they can make up better things than this. Colvett could have just come out and said, there was an exit wound. That's it. I don't know why you're saying there wasn't. We are not going to post pictures of Charlie's body. I mean, that's insane. However, I'll make this point. The producer of Charlie Kirk's podcast has claimed that a miracle stopped more people being killed by the bullet that hit the right-wing influencer. Andrew Colvett claimed to have spoken to a surgeon that tried to save Mr. Kirk's life and posted on social media to discuss the apparent lack of an exit wound. A prominent right-wing figure in the U.S., Mr. Kirk, a staunch ally of Trump, this we understand. Mr. Colvett, executive producer on The Charlie Kirk Show, apologized for the somewhat graphic nature of the post. In it, he discussed what he said was a lack of an exit wound from the bullet, despite it being a high-powered, high-velocity round. Colvett included what he said were quotes from a surgeon. It was an absolute miracle that someone else didn't get killed. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like a man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him, too. Mr. Colvett said what happened was remarkable and miraculous. President Trump and J.D. Vance are expected to be among the prominent MAGA members who will go to the funeral this weekend. I think, what do I have here? This is an interesting article. It's called The Exit Wound Myth, Why the, quote, Charlie Kirk wasn't shot with a .30-06 story is total garbage. So I'll say a few things first. I have another video. This is from One Shot TV with 2 million views. They are lying about the Charlie Kirk assassination, where he again talks about, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but he, as well as many others, go through the motions of why a .30-06, and these guys are gun guys, why 30-06 would have gone through and through and things like this. I'm going to say a few things. In all probability, correct. I'm not going to pretend to be a gun expert, but I've been doing a lot of research on all of these conspiracy theories, and so I'll give you my quick assessment. First, they started claiming that Charlie's friends and his security killed him. And I'm sorry, that is a massive leap. Okay, right now the story is that we have video of a guy on a roof running. He has a gun. This guy reportedly was left aligned according to the evidence that we have so far. Left aligned, dating a transferee. They found bullets that said, hey, fascist, catch. You want to make the argument that law enforcement planted it all? Sure, fine. I don't know, whatever. If you were to do that, though, you are creating this circuitous path which requires many assumptions. While possible, I take a step back from that and say, when I hear hooves, I don't think zebras. I think horses. Not that it's impossible. Sometimes it is a zebra or a unicorn. And sometimes it can be. And we have a couple different versions of this going both directions. First thing is, there's videos showing a guy standing behind Charlie Kirk filming, and he touches his arm and makes a hand gesture. That just looks like security. My friend and I, she knew sign language, and she taught me some things. And so when we would be at shows and there was loud music playing, she would look at me across the room and make sign language gestures at me, communicating in a noisy environment. And I was like, this is amazing. She would, like, what is it, alcohol is like that or something? And it's like, I know what those hand signs mean. Now, to be honest, I can infer if someone goes like that, what they're trying to say. But there's a general sign she could do. It was like me and a bunch of friends. And we knew she was saying, it's like, let's go grab some booze. And among other things, like, let's get out of here, let's leave. And I'm like, wow, otherwise I'd have to yell, which I can't, it's too loud. Security guards use hand signs. They're telling other security guards when it's a loud and noisy environment and Charlie's talking to a microphone and it's booming, they're saying things like, check your left, go. And the guy sees it and he sees the hand sign and he looks around and checks. That's good security. And people were trying to imply that this guy, who's Charlie's friend, was secretly coordinating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. While in the realm of possibility, it's not like it's not like anyone's arguing he's casting a spell or anything. No, like it's entirely possible the guy was doing this. It just makes so many leaps. Why would I assume Charlie Kirk's own security and friends were trying to kill him? Now, a bunch of people have come out with these stories where they're like, they're not telling us the truth. Perhaps it was Israel. Guys, yes, fine, possible, but why? Support for Israel among Gen Z is in the gutter. It's getting worse. Charlie Kirk was trying to get influencers to support Israel. Why would Israel then kill him? It just ruined their principal ally. If anything, the argument is the way better argument is Islamists killed him. Maybe. Now, about the 30-6, the one thing I will say is this. Reading all of these conspiracy theories, the one thing many people are bringing up is there's no way a 30-6 round is not going to make an exit wound. It's going to go through and through, as Colvett said. And I say this with all due respect to Colvett because I'm going to assume his reasoning for doing this, for saying what he said. And I don't blame him. Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck, and it was gruesome and brutal. And when I watched that video, it shook me to my core. I knew Charlie. He was nice to me. He helped me. I didn't consider him just to be someone that I worked with, though I don't consider him a drinking buddy friend or anything like that. He was more than just some guy that worked with. He was a friend. I had texted him only a week prior. We largely communicated over work and politics, but there are lines where it's like a guy that I know versus someone that I've talked to about family. And again, I'll stress, many more people have way more reason to be upset and saddened by this, but he was a good man and he was nice to me and he made me feel important. And at a time where you're always struggling, Billy Corgan was on Bill Maher and he said, even at the top, when Smashing Pumpkins was as big, it's like you're always fighting. There's always someone better. You're always pushing. Charlie was so good at what he did. When he invited me and my team to TPUSA 3 times, had us on stage and joined us on stage on the show, taking time out of his day and organizing all this to come out and join us, even getting asking Tucker Carlson to come on and join us. What that felt like was like Charlie Kirk was saying to me, no, man, you are the best. And like that's the feeling he made you get. And it was always more, and that's what he was good at. That's why everybody thought of him as a friend. Because we're standing there, we're talking to him, we're talking about my wife and family. It wasn't just we're here to make money or anything like that. It really felt like this guy was like, listen, man, I'm here to give you a hand. I'm going to help you out. When Colvett, who basically is, also who I know and is there and worked with us and all this stuff, when I saw this video, the first video from far away, I thought it may have been a small caliber handgun because people were saying a man in the crowd lurched forward and shot Charlie. And I said, maybe he can survive this. Luke Rutkowski hit me up and he said, there's no way. I called him right away and I said, why are you saying this? Like that looks like he may have taken he may survive this. Okay. And he said, it was a rifle round from far away. And I said, no way. And he said, yes, it was. Even before any of this information came out, Luke Rutkowski, who is a gun guy and does gun trainings and all of this stuff, immediately said, based on the 2 videos, rifle shot. Now, there are people claiming it was a small caliber palm pistol. That is absurd. There's another story where people claim it came from behind him and did leave an exit wound. That it entered from behind and exited, and that's why you see that brutal image. Many people argue that his shirt flew in the air, which meant it came straight forward. They all can't be true. So it's fine to say we don't know. But in that moment, the assessment was right there on the spot. Luke said on the phone to me, this was a rifle. And I said, show me. And he's like, there's a video. I'm going to send it to you. As soon as I saw the first frame, I knew right away that Charlie was dead. And it's been a couple, it is still hard to talk about. What I saw in that video was that Charlie died in an instant. Frank Turek said the same thing as they were trying to save his life. And they rushed him to an SUV. And there's videos of them doing it. Putting him in the SUV exactly as the story he told. And he said, while quite distressed, he knew that Charlie had died in an instant. So let's talk about the 30-06. Anybody who knows guns knows the power of a 30-06 high-velocity round. It's likely through and through. However, it is entirely possible that from that range at a downward angle, the bullet entered his neck, hit his spine, and deflected inward, stopping just at his skin. It is unlikely, but possible. Charlie was a young man. He likely was healthy with good bone density, which increases the probability that the bullet entered his neck, struck his spine, killing him instantly, and then deflecting inward and stopping just below the skin. It is entirely possible. Unlikely, possible. Andrew Colvett basically said Charlie Kirk was the Man of Steel, and now people are making videos saying, oh, so he was a magic bullet. It's a magic bullet. No, it was probably a soft tip round to maximize damage, though the high probability, even the 90% would be through and through. There is still a not even extremely rare possibility that the bullet hit bone and deflected. I've talked to a few people about this and asked them, and while there are many videos from gun experts saying, no way, it'd go through and through, watch, I'm going to shoot something, many of the experts I talked to, people who have taken lives, said, oh yeah, man, weird things happen when bullets enter soft tissue, hit bone, bounce around. I've heard stories of 22s going in and bouncing and ending up in weird places. So what I'll say is this. Andrew Colvett, in my view, is describing this in such a way because he wants people to feel coming out of this, there was something good, that Charlie was special, because he was. But as these conspiracy theorists, and I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say that, I'm saying when the people who are theorizing that there may be a conspiracy, because I don't mean that derisively, are saying it's not possible, well, it is possible. I'm not saying that I know for sure either. I think that many people are latching onto what Colvett said, calling it a magic bullet, and they're fanning the flames of theories that are less likely. I'll say it again. Palm gun, behind the shot, shooter up front. There's all these different theories. And as I look through all of them, because I want to know too, I say you have to make a lot of assumptions for this to be correct. The story given by the FBI is lacking in a lot of information and seems something about it isn't right, but makes the least amount of assumptions. I think there were more people involved. That's how people knew. That's how these posts were online. I think the FBI hasn't gotten evidence to connect this, so they're not publicly saying anything. The messages seem highly suspect, but in all likelihood, seems like this guy did it. I think maybe, I don't know, I think someone needs to just say, guys, the sad reality is that a 30-06 round likely entered Charlie Kirk's neck, striking bone in his neck, killing him instantly, and deflecting the bullet inward, which resulted in no exit wound, which is entirely possible. It was a gruesome, catastrophic injury, and that's why they couldn't save his life. Frank Turek said, as he was in the vehicle, Charlie was gone. It hit his spine and knocked him out. When I watched the video, I said to my wife, when she asked, I said, his lights went out in an instant. At first, I was hoping that when he got hit, he was reaching because he was conscious, because no, I think that's likely what happened. Colvin is saying he was the Man of Steel because he wants people to feel good. He wants people to look up to Charlie. He doesn't want Charlie's legacy to be that he died in that moment without knowing anything. He wants people to say that Charlie saved you. He wants people to believe that Charlie was larger than life. And I respect it and I understand it. The sad reality is Charlie didn't know what happened. There was a bang. The bullet hit him in the neck, likely hit his spine. The bone, the vertebrae, likely deflected the round, creating a catastrophic internal injury, which killed him in an instant, and they couldn't have saved him. It wasn't a magic bullet. Charlie Kirk wasn't made of steel. He just got shot in the neck, and it struck his spine. I want to know exactly what happened. I want to know who did this and why they did it. I want all the answers, and I have respect for those that are asking these questions. I do not mean in any way to deride those who are talking about ballistics and what they think may or may not have happened. I am just saying, I have looked through all of these in sad desperation, trying to understand exactly what is going on, and I have found that the most likely scenario is still that a left-aligned trans advocate dating a furry trans person with these proclivities themselves got on a rooftop, had premeditated this, planned his escape, had a gun. People are pointing out he's at a Dairy Queen. Why? Because he said in the messages he was stuck in Orem. Now, maybe the messages are fake, but he was in Orem at a Dairy Queen. Listen, everybody thinks they know how people behave. Everybody thinks they know how someone's going to respond to tragedy. They said this about Sandy Hook. They say this about Erica Kirk now. You don't know. You don't know. Life is not like a movie. People assume they know how they'd behave. Let me say this as well. Let me read a little bit of this real quick, and then I want to address the Erica Kirk stuff, which I don't blame anybody for wanting answers, but I think you're allowed to say it. Okay, whatever. I'm not here to rag on anybody. Jack Hopkins says the myth. He writes, let's start with the lie. Quote, Charlie Kirk couldn't have been shot with a .30-06. There would have been a massive exit wound. Since we didn't see one, the whole story is fake, staged, or coming from another angle. He says it's the kind of claim that sounds smart to people who've watched too many action movies, but read too few forensic reports. It spreads fast because it feels like insider knowledge. But it's a lie and a dangerous one because it plays on ignorance of ballistics and trauma medicine. I've watched this lie bounce around social media the last few days, and if it weren't for already enough critical fires to put out, as if there weren't. Here come the propaganda peddlers. He says, let's bury this myth. No fluff, no theory, just hard facts. And a reality check big enough to slap the smug smile off every ballistics expert who thinks watching CSI turned them into a trauma surgeon. Why the claim is seductive. 30-06 is big, powerful. Movies and TV show dramatic exit wounds. Massive exit wound feels intuitive. So when someone says there's no exit wound, therefore it wasn't a 30-06, it feels logic. But it's not logic, it's lazy thinking. He says, bullet design matters more than caliber. A full metal jacket 30-06 may pass through cleanly with a small entry and small exit. A soft point hunting round may expand violently and leave a massive wound. A hollow point may fragment and lodge internally, leaving no exit wound at all. Same caliber, different outcome. I'll stress, in my opinion, a hollow point 30-06 would be less accurate and would have, let's just say, hollow points are meant to expand and cause internal damage. So I'll leave it there. Bone changes everything. Hit soft tissue, higher chance of exit. Hit dense bone, collarbone, clavicle, shoulder, blade, scapula, etc. Bullet can fragment, tumble, or stop entirely. Fragmentation often leaves multiple projectiles inside the body. Straight shot versus oblique angle, totally different outcomes. A bullet striking ribs at an angle can ricochet, change trajectory, or stop short. A 30-06 high velocity, yes, but velocity drops with distance. Energy dissipates differently depending on range, angle, and tissue encountered. He says, Uganda, AK-47 rifle round. 27-year-old woman shot in the face, bullet lodged in her neck. CT confirmed, no exit wound, Journal of Medical Case Reports. U.S. pediatric case, 13-year-old girl, rifle cartridge lodged in abdomen. Retained until surgery, no exit wound, PACR Journal. Forensic review, large review of gunshot wounds showed retained bullets are common. Fragmentation, bone strikes, and tissue drag prevent exit, even in rifle wounds. Thoracoabdominal case, autopsy 2022. Bullet traversed chest and abdomen but remained lodged. Exit not guaranteed. MDPI diagnostics. If you think 30-6 equals always exits, you're ignoring documented medical reality. The assumed caliber dictates outcome. It doesn't. They assume all shots hit soft tissue. They don't. They ignore medical literature, which shows countless rifle wounds with no exit. This is like saying every car crash at 70 miles an hour kills the driver. No, it depends on the angle. Same with bullets. Another claim was that the shot came from the left to the right, not the front to the back. How do they know? Shaky phone footage shows imaginary lines. Artifacting doesn't mean bullet. I have no problem with people asking that question. There's one video that they say shows a muzzle flash. We don't know what it shows. You're assuming it's a muzzle flash. It's fine to ask the question. I got no problem. But again, it creates a whole bunch of questions that create a whole bunch of holes. Think of it like a Sudoku puzzle. We're looking at this with numbers everywhere, trying to figure out what number fits. And sometimes it looks like that number might fit, but then you realize, no. Why? Because one is already in this block, one can't be in this line. There it is. It doesn't make sense. There are people who do very advanced Sudoku puzzles, and you pencil in what may go there. So on the top left, you put 139, but you don't pen it in because it's one of those, and you want to say, here's why. When you do that with these stories, and I think it's fair, I walk it back and I'm like, okay, it's much less likely. But for now, we don't know for sure. I would just say I'm not going to draw that conclusion because it defies most of the logic that we've seen so far. Forensic pathology isn't guesswork. It's careful trajectory analysis based on imaging, wound path, bone involvement, and internal tissue damage. In order for these conspiracies to be true, you need to make a bunch of assumptions. One, that Erica Kirk is somehow in on it and knows, and her husband is dead and she wanted it to happen. That's an absurdity. I'm sorry, that's very, very absurd. People are pointing out in these conspiracy theories that she doesn't seem to be behaving the way they'd expect her to. Okay, subtract that. Maybe you're not arguing that you're saying she doesn't know. Kash Patel is either an absolute buffoon or in on it as well. Kash was friends with Charlie. Dan Bongino was real good friends with Charlie. Kash Bongino and Charlie went into business together on multiple ventures. I do not believe for a second that Charlie's own friends killed him. I just don't believe it. There's some conspiracies that Charlie was wearing some kind of weird device and they're claiming he totally faked his death. That's insane. Charlie is a large, again, there's no way. So let's throw those all aside. Those are crazy. The other angles, the lies, means either Kash has no idea what's going on or he's lying. All of the FBI know what's going on or they're really bad at their job. I don't buy it. I mean, that requires tremendous leaps. That they would intentionally kill Charlie Kirk. Israel killed Charlie is the one argument. But Charlie was reportedly holding events to convince young influencers to support Israel. Why would Israel be like, hey, this guy's helping us kill him? It makes literally no sense. There were donors that were upset that Charlie was going to have Tucker Carlson at his events. Maybe, but that's no reason why they'd take his life. Makes no sense. Charlie was famous and a powerful advocate for Israel. You can make the argument. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying when I look at the theories and I'm placing the numbers in line, I'm like, there's too many gaps and leaps and assumptions. And then the last thing I'll mention is the Erica Kirk thing. People are claiming that she's coming off as cold and scripted. I agree. And I mean no disrespect to Erica Kirk. I just want to stress this is not evidence of her doing anything wrong. In fact, in my view, it's actually evidence of exactly what you'd expect. Imagine being asked, after witnessing the death of your husband or your wife and the father or mother to your children dying in front of you in a cold-blooded assassination, people screaming and taking his body to the hospital and you have no idea what's going on. How would you respond? Shock is the most likely. People get shot and they're dying and they experience shock and they don't know it. Your brain freezes. For those of us that watched it and we knew, the first thing that I thought was disbelief. I had been told that Charlie was shot and I thought, no way. I saw reports, shots fired at Kirk event. I said, okay, there's no way Charlie got shot. Then when I saw it, it was denial. Okay, it was denial again. It was like, okay, he got shot, but he could probably survive this. And then I saw the close-up shot. Here's my thoughts on this. Sometimes people go numb. It's a defense mechanism that humans have. It happens. They go numb. I don't think Erica Kirk went numb. I think they went to her and they said, get it together and stop freaking out. Because I'm sure that she was freaking out. And they said, you have to stand up and speak before 100 million people right now, so stop. That's what I think happened. I don't think they were being so mean. I'm just saying. I imagine behind the scenes, Erica was probably freaking out. And they approached her and said, Erica, you are going to go and speak. You are going to tell these people it's going to be okay. You are going to tell them that we cannot back down. You are going to have to lead now. You cannot cry. You cannot break down. You must send this message. This is not a game of you being a mom. This is you being the leader to a movement. And I think that's what she did. And I think that she came out and she, along with others, put together this script and this narrative and this message that she was going to deliver. And she had to suppress that pain and speak out. And you know what that means? She had to act. So people are saying it's like scripted. She's acting. Of course she is. Because if she actually let out the emotions that she was going to convey, she'd probably just start crying. Snot would fall over her nose and she'd struggle to speak. That was the real emotion. Don't get me wrong. I certainly often ask these questions myself. And I'm not going to give anybody just the benefit of the doubt no matter what. But I'm going to approach this logically. What would I do? I'll tell you what I do. If I was there and I witnessed what happened to Charlie, and then I went to the hospital and they told me he was dead. You guys saw how I almost started crying even just trying to explain this stuff. And it's been 2 weeks now. And I am a man. I can't remember the last time I actually cried. If they came to me and said, Tim, shut the F up. You need to go speak right now. I'd say, give me a Xanax. I don't take drugs either, but give me some kind of pill to stop. Or I'd slap myself in the face and say, okay, it's time to man up. That's why I look at this and I say, I don't believe the conspiracies. All of this, I think, is actually rather logical. Far be it from me. Far be it from me. The one thing that really pisses me off is that I know there are people that are making these videos and saying these things because they know it's going to generate traffic and they're going to get millions of views. Who am I? Tell me I'm wrong. By all means, you're allowed. Tell me I'm wrong. That's my logic. That's what I think. I'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out, guys. I'll see you on the next segment.